Yes.
John Brown must prove that he is a man of high character, reputation, etc., and not a thief.
Yes.
It doesn't remove the publisher
You know, Mr.
to prove
You know, Mr.
that
Oh,
he's
sorry.
selling in circumstances where he's sure that John Brown, or reasonably that John Brown is a thief.
Yes. No, well, we can take statements. For example, what you say there, prima facie, you accuse a person of a criminal offense. That is one of the things, that's an exception. If you accuse a person of a criminal offense, a woman of immoral things, that's an exception. But what you just said, a man was convicted in England, went to prison, and they published an article about him being a criminal, and the newspaper lost because they couldn't prove it. You see,
they couldn't prove the conviction?
They couldn't prove. No, because in those days you couldn't just tender the conviction. You had to prove that the man was a criminal and that he had committed the offense.
Quite frankly,
I want to tell you
that reflects on the representation.
No, but you see, no, it was the simple fact that the burden of proof was on the publisher to prove that what he said was true. And that's all I'm saying. Now, this is where we have the fundamental difference between the American and the Indian. You see, Pastor, we're not hearing you. Listen. So what we say is that, in our view, is that the Americans, Sister Sullivan, the committee having spent 2/3 of its time on Sullivan, having come up with two who said one should be accepted, two shift the burden of proof, which we agree with, and the other on Reynolds, which has not been followed in two other Commonwealth countries, for the reason that they say you need statutory things to do that. They have not adopted the full Sullivan, but they have limited it to political discussions, not to public officials. We think that if the press is to carry out its function, as stated by Mr. Spaldings, elaborately stated the function and role in democratic society, then it should not have anything that's a chilling effect to prevent it from doing so. When the press is wrong, then certainly they will have to prove their case. But to start a thing against them, it's a denial of the constitutional right. It's not proportionate. You have proportionality, particularly where you deal with qualified constitutions.
We should have tried that out. When the press is wrong, they will have to.
If the press is wrong,
in a case where how, if the burden of proof is on me to say that I am not a lecture.
you're not what?
A lecture.
Yes.
Yes. Or
Well, then you are failed to prove the case. While every other area of torture.
The press is wrong, but I have to prove.
No, I didn't mean in that context, Mr. Well, the press is wrong. I mean, the press has done something you can't substantiate. That's what I meant. No? So let us not get into that. No? Get semantics.
No, it's not answer. I'm trying to understand.
When I'm saying if the press publishes something which it cannot, let's say for justification, the plaintiff proves his case on the burden the press cannot do, then the press has to be a standard. You have justification of qualified plaintiff, must get to that. I was dealing with the question of the constitutional right and diminishing the constitutional right. That is what we're dealing with. That is what I was dealing with, the constitutional right. As I say, we are being denied. The American Constitution allows it, and we are using, I think, out of all proportion by taking a common law presumption that you had and applying it. And that is what is the difference between the two. And all I'm saying is small committee having spent, if you read the report, 2/3 of it deals with this issue and comes up with three things. And I was trying to point out that the last one, rejecting it, is not sustainable because of the Reynolds case has not been followed elsewhere in two Commonwealth countries. Yes.
No problem. Sorry,
that when examples, the practical side of the lawsuits or the practical side of media would suggest that you're never going to find something which says, you're a thief. I mean, like that. I mean, if the media house does that, then they stand the consequence. What usually happens in most of the cases, sorry? No, I think that what usually happens,
I can give you an example right later. Right here.
But maybe I should go on.
A Jamaican newspaper. Go on.
Yeah, you see, in getting on the specifics of examples like that, in my mind, I mean, I don't know what the example is going to be, that the press usually will not say something that a man is a thief, for instance, unless they can prove it. What usually happens is that you report on a set of circumstances, which in fact a person is either close to, involved in, or something like that, and that leads on to the assumption that it is so, and that's why I'm trying to get away from the thing of the press ever saying that somebody would, if the press makes a definitive statement that is so, the press should pay the price for that.
I think we're going to hear some examples. Senator.
No, give the examples for that.
John Brown used his employer's money without any authority and was fired. That amounts to what? Then John Brown is an honest man.
John Brown uses his prize money without any other part.
Without any authority. He appropriated money belonging to his employer without the consent of his employer. Would John Brown now be, if that happens to be written, would John Brown be called on to show that he did not appropriate before his case could be considered?
No, because the context in which it is prima facie shows that you're accusing him of a criminal offense. And as I said before, once you show that, then you're in problems. You've got to justify it.
I wanted to make the distinction between a stark statement and a statement which contextualizes behavior.
You see, what we're dealing with here is not the statements where somebody clearly accuses somebody of a criminal offense or patent dishonesty. What we're talking about is to have discussions and things of public interest, and that you don't get them, that you can say things and say it fairly and freely and honestly. And so you don't have a situation where somebody just sues because they want to prevent stifling and things like that.
I'm just because I want to travel the road with you, but somehow along that road there's a rope that is preventing me from proceeding with you.
Well, let me put it this way. In the United States, they deal with it applies to only public officials. Why? Because public officials are there to carry out functions in the interest of the society and the public. And it is limited to public officials. It does not apply to the ordinary citizen. And that is why they say that the burden should be on the public official for criticism. And if he can show that the criticism, that he has made false statements maliciously, then certainly he's entitled to get his day in court and have his damages. But he has to prove that what the criticism is false and malicious. Only public officials. But you go down to New Zealand and Australia, and they have narrowed it down to political and political discussion. So this is not a matter for the general public